Ever wonder what it really takes to make those awesome events you love actually happen? I'm talking conferences, festivals, even those company holiday parties that are somehow both fun and organized.
It's a bit of a magic trick,
It
isn't it?
really is. Well, today, our deep dive is going to take us behind the scenes, kind of like getting a backstage pass. We're using Indeed.com's guide to activities director interview questions as our source.
Ooh, that's smart.
I know, right? We'll figure out what hiring managers are really looking for. But honestly, even if you're not applying for a job like that, you'll come away appreciating all the work that goes into events.
Definitely. It's a whole art form, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Okay, so Indeed.com makes it clear right off the bat. This isn't just tea about being the life of the party. They emphasize it's got to be this balance of leadership, creativity, and serious organizational skills.
Right, right.
They even compare an activities director to an orchestra conductor, which I thought was a pretty cool image.
Oh, it is. And a fitting one, too. Because think about it. You're not just leading musicians. You're orchestrating an entire experience for people.
I never thought of it that way.
And the stakes are kind of high sometimes. Events often reflect on the organization hosting them. They can shape how the whole community sees that organization, even impact fundraising or business outcomes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, fun is key, of course, but there's a lot riding on an activities director to get things right.
Okay, now I'm seeing why those interview questions get so intense.
They do, they do.
No wonder. Indeed.com dives into specific traits they're looking for, starting with creativity and innovation. They even use the phrase methods for generating innovative ideas. Is there like a secret formula for fun that they teach you or something?
No magic potion or anything like that.
Okay, good. I was getting worried there for a second.
But there are definitely trends to watch in the event world. One big one is immersive experiences. Like escape room style challenges, but built into conferences.
Ah, so people are doing that now.
More and more. It gets people engaged and networking in a way that feels natural.
That is smart.
And then, of course, technology is playing a bigger role, too. We're seeing interactive apps, personalized stuff at events. It's all got to be relevant to today's audience.
Wow, so it's not just picking a theme and booking a DJ anymore. Times have changed.
Totally. And that kind of brings us to leadership, which Indeed.com makes a point of saying isn't just about bossing people around.
Yeah, that's not leadership at all.
Right. Their sample answer actually highlights leading by example. And I can tell you from experience, that makes all the difference.
Ooh, story time. I'm
Yeah.
all ears.
All right, so I once saw an activities director handle this huge BE venue change just days before a big event. Total fiasco, everyone was freaking out.
Oh, no, I bet.
But this director, instead of panicking, started brainstorming solutions right away,
Right.
delegating tasks, even helping move furniture at the new location. And they stayed so calm, total we're in this together attitude.
Oh.
And they pulled off an amazing event. It was inspiring to watch, honestly.
That's the kind of leader you want to work for.
Exactly. And it sets the tone for everyone, staff, volunteers.
Okay.
Ultimately, it affects how the guests experience the whole thing.
Okay, now for the part I'm personally less excited about, organizational skills. I'm already picturing endless to-do lists.
Don't get overwhelmed by the list. It's not just about being tidy. It's about managing budgets, contracts, deadlines, and coordinating all these different people with different personalities.
Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way.
And you got to make it look effortless, even when it's crazy behind the scenes.
So less about being a neat freak, more about being an organizational mastermind.
Exactly. Think of it like a swan gliding on water, all graceful. But underneath, those feet are working like crazy to keep it moving.
Haha, I love that. Okay, now I'm curious to see how all this actually comes up in interview questions.
Me too. Let's dig into some of Indeed.com's examples and see what we find.
Perfect. First one that caught my eye was about conflict resolution. I was surprised. I thought this role was mostly about logistics, not playing therapist.
And that's where that conductor idea comes back in. You're not just dealing with instruments, you're dealing with the musicians playing them.
Ah, I get it.
Each vendor, volunteer, staff member has their own way of doing things, their own perspective. So communication is key.
So it's like event diplomacy.
You could say that.
Yeah.
You got to find common ground, keep everyone focused on the shared goal.
This is making me realize there's way more to this job than meets the eye. Okay, another question that jumped out was about handling last-minute changes. I mean, that's something everyone can relate to, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Wedding planning, daily life, it all goes wrong sometimes.
And the advice they give applies beyond just events, I think.
Totally. Backup plans, anticipating problems, building a team that can adapt.
So less panicking, more having that mental toolkit ready when things go wrong.
Exactly. And sometimes those unexpected moments become the most memorable part of the event.
Ooh, good point. Okay, before we get too deep into the questions, I gotta ask, this guide from Indeed.com, did you notice how they give a bunch of general advice, but then they have this whole other set of questions at the end?
I did. I think they're trying to push you to really think, go beyond the surface level.
Like, give us a sneak peek. What kind of curveballs are they throwing?
Well, there's one about an event that completely flopped.
Yeah.
Everyone loves a disaster-averted story, right?
Yeah.
So this lets people show how they problem solve under pressure.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, there's a question about diversity and inclusivity. That's huge EE these days.
It is.
It's not just a trend. It's about making sure your events are welcoming to everyone, reflecting the community.
So much more than just throwing a party. It's gotta have meaning.
Exactly. We've only just begun to unpack all this.
Okay, so we've talked about how activities directors are basically like event superheroes, right? They need all these skills, gotta be ready for anything.
Totally. Like they've got a utility belt full of tricks and strategies.
All right. I love that. Okay, back to the Indeed.com interview questions. One that I thought was really interesting was about how you measure the success of an event. I mean, it can't just be about how many people showed up.
Right. It's definitely more nuanced than that. Attendance matters, and obviously, like the money stuff, return on investment, all that.
Of course, of course.
But Indeed.com, in their sample answer, they talk about how happy the participants were. Did the event actually meet the goals of the organization? Even stuff like what was the long-term impact on the community?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But how do you measure that stuff? Like, do you send out surveys, stock social media? I'm really curious how you figure out if an event actually made a difference.
That's a great question. It's a mix of hard data and like the vibes you get. Surveys are good for figuring out if people were satisfied.
Right.
Social media lets you see how much buzz there was, if people are still talking about it. Sometimes you even do follow-up interviews to get more detailed feedback.
So it's not just about the immediate reaction, it's about the lasting effect.
You got it. Imagine you're running a conference for, like, entrepreneurs. Success isn't just about how many people came, but did they make new business deals because of it? Did anyone get inspired to start their own WN company because of the connections they made there?
Whoa, that is a totally different way to look at it.
Right. And this brings us back to those extra questions Indeed.com throws in at the end of the guide. They really make you think about the real-world stuff, the tough situations.
Okay, what kind of curveballs are we talking about? Give me an example.
Well, there's one where they ask about an event that totally bombed, that went wrong somehow. It's a classic interview question, but especially relevant for this job.
Oh, I can only imagine. Outdoor festival, sudden downpour, keynote speaker gets food poisoning. The possibilities are terrifying.
Yeah, there's always something. But that's what makes this question so good. You can show off your problem-solving skills, how you think on your feet, how you deal with stress when things go sideways.
It's like those cooking shows where they mess up a dish on purpose to show you how to fix it, but with a whole event.
Exactly. And just like a chef can save a burnt sauce, a good activities director can save a whole event from disaster. You got to have backup plans, stay calm, keep your team focused on finding solutions.
So it's not about avoiding mistakes, it's about knowing how to handle them when they happen.
Exactly. And that brings us to another big question, one that reflects how much event planning has changed. Diversity and inclusivity.
Oh yeah, that's super important these days. Everyone's talking about it.
And Indeed.com, they get specific. They ask how you, as the activities director, would make sure your events are welcoming to everyone, no matter who they are. It's about more than just checking boxes. It's about understanding what different communities need, making everyone feel like they belong.
So it's got to be built into the whole plan, right? From choosing the location to what you actually do at the event.
Exactly. Things like having ramps and stuff for people with disabilities, gender-neutral bathrooms, making sure your speakers and performers represent different backgrounds. Even thinking about the food you serve. Are there options for different dietary needs and cultural preferences?
So many details. It's about thinking ahead and removing those barriers so everyone can participate and have fun.
That's what separates the good from the great.
Yeah.
They're not just thinking about the logistics, they're thinking about the people.
This whole conversation is blowing my mind. I never knew this job was so complex. It's like this crazy mix of creativity, logistics, people skills, and just a whole understanding of human nature.
And that's what makes it so cool. It's not just throwing parties, it's creating experiences that really resonate with people.
Okay, I am officially hooked. I feel like we could go on and on about this, but I know we have limited time.
You're right, time flies when you're having fun. But before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to circle back to something we mentioned earlier, the different types of events there are.
Ooh, yeah. Conferences, festivals, community things. It's like there are genres of events, each with their own challenges.
It's true.
Yeah.
And just like a film director might be good at action movies, but not so much romantic comedies, an activities director might have a knack for certain types of events.
So it's not just about being good at planning in general, it's about understanding the specifics of each type.
Exactly. A huge conference is totally different from a small neighborhood get-together. The budget's different, the way you market it's different, even the activities you plan would be different.
That makes a lot of sense. Someone who's awesome at a conference with thousands of people might not be the right fit for a block party, right?
Totally. It's all about finding the right match, what you're good at, Andy, what you enjoy.
This is making me think of those online quizzes like, what kind of pizza topping are you based on your personality? Maybe there should be one for activities directors to help them find their perfect event match.
Ah, I love that. The extravaganza planner, the intimate gathering guru.
Okay, someone needs to make this quiz, but seriously, this has really opened my eyes to all the different aspects of event planning.
And we've barely scratched the surface. There's so much information out there, blogs, podcasts, professional groups. It's a whole world to explore if you're interested.
A choose your own adventure for event lovers. So if you're feeling inspired, don't stop here.
The world of events is always changing, so there's always something new to discover.
Okay, I'm feeling super inspired, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we start planning our own dream events, let's recap what we've learned from Indeed.com's guide.
Good idea. What stood out to you the most?
Well, first off, we busted the myth that activities directors are just party planners, right? It's way more than that. You need leadership, you need to be organized, creative, and a master problem solver.
And we saw how those skills work in all the different genres of events. Huge conferences are different from small gatherings, and a good activities director can adjust their approach for each one.
We also talked about how a success isn't just about the numbers. It's about the impact the event has. Does it actually achieve the goals? Does it have a lasting effect on people?
And we can't forget about diversity and inclusivity. Making sure everyone feels welcome is so important, and it takes real effort to do it right.
But the biggest takeaway for me is that activities directors are basically like dot architects of experiences, right? They bring people together, create these memories, and actually make a difference in the world.
So well said. It's not just a job, it's like a passion for making connections and building community.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
I agree. Let's take a quick break, then come back and leave our listeners with some inspiring final thoughts.
Okay, we're back. And wow, my brain is seriously full after all that talk about activities directors. I'm seeing events in a whole new light, like I never noticed all the little details before.
It's amazing what happens when you take a deep dive into something, right? We take these experiences for granted, but there's so much work behind the scenes.
It's like we've got x-ray vision now, seeing all the effort that makes the fun happen. And, even if we're not all going to become professional event planners, I think these insights can help us in other areas of life too.
Oh, absolutely. We're all organizers in a way, aren't we? Planning a trip, managing a project at work, even just getting through our day without losing our minds.
Ah, true.
Those core skills, leadership, organization, creativity, problem solving, those apply everywhere.
You're so right. It's like we've unlocked a secret level of life skills just by looking at this one job. Okay, gotta ask. You've got all this experience. What are some of the resources or tools that activities directors use, besides the obvious stuff like spreadsheets and calendars, I mean?
One of the biggest things is actually .community. There are online forums, industry magazines, professional organizations. It's a way for activities directors to connect with each other, share ideas, learn from the best.
It's like their own little club of event planning ninjas.
Kind of. And the cool thing is, a lot of this information is out there for anyone, whether you're a pro or just starting out. There's always something new to discover.
So even if we're not planning on quitting our day jobs to become event planners, we can still learn from all these resources?
Exactly. And that brings me to a thought I wanted to leave everyone with. We've talked a lot about the logistics, the strategies, all that, but event planning, at its core, it's about something way deeper.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
It's about making connections. It's about helping people feel like they belong, like they're part of something. It's about those moments of joy, laughter, that feeling of being inspired, the stuff that stays with you long after the event is over.
Oh, I love that. We can't forget about the human element, right? It's about bringing people together in a way that really matters.
You said it. So next time you're at an event, don't just focus on the food or decorations. Pay attention to how it makes you feel. Notice those conversations happening, the new friendships forming, the sense of community. That's what a good activities director creates.
That's beautiful. It reminds me that there's a whole team of passionate people behind every great event.
And they deserve a round of applause.
Yeah.
To all the activities directors out there making the magic happen, we see you.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, remember, you can embrace this art of event planning too. Whether it's a party with friends or a big community celebration, you can create experiences that bring people together and have a positive impact.
Because in the end, it's those shared moments of joy that make life richer and more meaningful, don't you think?
I totally agree. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of activities directors. We hope you've learned something new and maybe gained a little appreciation for what goes into making those unforgettable events.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep creating those special moments that connect us all.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.